How do I price my agency? What do I charge for my consulting services? How do I charge what I'm worth? How do I price my proposal so that the client wins and I profit? If you've ever struggled with pricing strategy, you're going to love these insights. Hey, my name's Joe Soto, and I built a 7-figure marketing agency with the principles I'm going to share with you in this video for how to price so you can get what you're asking for your agency or your consulting services. I'm going to just kind of walk through just 4 high-level pricing strategy rules. First, understand that pricing, that value, and fairness, it's all subjective. And usually the price is in your head, meaning the struggle you have is with your internal belief of what you should charge based on knowing that you are providing a ton of value to a client. Start there. If you're not providing value, let's rewind before you work on pricing, figure out how to give value. But if you know you're going to give value and you know you're going to help that client, then the pricing is in your head. It's a mindset thing. Beyond that, there's 4 pricing strategy rules I want to help you with and kind of walk you through. The first rule is to customize your pricing. Okay? Now, there's a quote by Ronald Baker. He says the most common pricing mistake among professional firms, which is what you are if you sell agency or consulting services, alongside underpricing, is pricing the service and not the customer. All too often people come to me and they say, Joe, here's my packages. What should I charge for this? Or Joe, I have a client and they want this service. What should I charge for that service? And I already know they're approaching this in the wrong way. You want to customize your pricing by pricing the client, not the service. Now, I know that goes against the grain what some of you might think, but that's why you may not be making a lot of money as well. So always price the client, not the service. The easiest thing to do is to charge everybody the same price for the same exact thing or for the same service. But there's no greater mistake that you can make in value-based pricing, which is the model I teach in my Marketing Agency Academy, which is a value-based pricing model, not a model based on what package or service that you sell. Selling services and back packages or bundled services, that's not the way to be wildly profitable in this business. Okay? You want to realize that some people, okay, are willing to pay more for your work, for your project, for your services, and your job is to let them. The way you do that is to always price the client, not the service. I'll give you an example. For several years, for like 3 years, we primarily sold and marketed to restaurants from about 2000 and end of 2014 to 2016-ish, okay? And for the exact same amount of work that we would do for a restaurant, that we would do for another client, maybe a $50 million professional B2B client, we would charge 3 or 4 times more for monthly retainers than what we would ever charge for a restaurant that had a smaller budget, they're a smaller client, and we price the client, not the service. Same amount of service. So we'd sell, say, for example, Facebook ad management and ad campaign and creative services to a professional B2B service company. We might start with a $3,000 to $4,000 retainer for a restaurant client. It's $1,200 to $1,500 on average of what those clients can afford to pay, and that's for about 80% of the restaurants out there, unless they're a restaurant group. So we always price the client, not the service, because some clients, some companies. Now, also keep in mind, for different clients, different companies, the return, the value you're going to give for the same amount of effort is more. If you're going to help somebody sell a higher ticket product or service, and you're running ads for them, for example, and they get a lot more monetary value and revenue growth from your efforts, you can charge more for that. If you're talking about a local business that is only doing maybe $1 million per year, and their average sale is like, $60 to $100, it takes a lot more quantity for you to justify charging a higher fee. So keep that in mind. It's an important distinction. A lot of people don't make it. So in a customized services firm, which was what I would encourage you to adopt the mindset of, where every engagement is truly unique, the value created is always different, even if the output appears similar from client to client. So for example, the output would be the services, the marketing services we might render, but different clients are going to get different returns on their investments, and so we'll price that accordingly. So it's fair on both ends. Now, and I'll throw this in here, there's a concept called the minimum level of engagement, your MLOE. So I always like to frame our pricing. If somebody says, well, how much do you charge? I don't throw out monthly fees usually. I'll usually throw out a yearly engagement fee. So I'll say, listen, for the year, our minimum level of engagement is approximately $30,000 in fees over the course of 12 months spread out. Now, if you're doing some math, that's a minimum of $2,500 a month retainer. Another way that you can frame it is particularly if you have project consulting services that you offer, is you can say, typically our projects start at around $25,000. We won't take any clients on minimum 90-day commitments. We always do like a 90-day, then a month-to-month commitment with our clients. But I would encourage you to be upfront and congruent with those fees and price anchor high, which we'll talk about in a moment. And by the way, scaling is not adding more clients; it's adding more revenue. Okay, you don't want to worry about always trying to get more clients. You want to learn about how to manage your client churn, which means how do I replace my smaller clients with larger incoming clients? And if that's something you struggle with and you're not in my marketing agency academy, then you might want to check it out. Okay, so how do you? So here's what I want to encourage you to do: move from being a productized service firm selling packages or bundled services to a customized service firm, and you'll start to be a lot more profitable. Believe me, and you'll thank me later. Okay. Rule number 2, can't believe we're only through rule number 1 here. Rule number 2 is to give 3 options. Okay, Rory Sutherland says, he's the vice chairman of advertising for Ogilvy and Mather. Have you heard of that agency? Have you read Ogilvy on advertising? Hopefully. He says it's simply harder to like something when you haven't chosen it. This is why you give 3 options to a client, let them pick one. Ideally, they pick the middle version. This is why people, he says, who will happily pay $200 for a pair of shoes resent paying their electricity bill. And Rory just wrote a really awesome book recently called Alchemy, The Dark Art and Curious Science of Creating Magic in Brands, Business, and Life. And he is the vice chairman of advertising. Really good book. I love his ideas. So always give 3 options in your pricing. And then also always anchor with a high-priced option. So this is called price anchoring. You want to give a high-priced option above where you think the client is probably going to engage with you at, okay? What this does is it creates comparative value in the mind of your client, okay? So you can also anchor with case studies by showing what other clients have paid you that's high fees. If you don't have that, just simply bring up your high fees. So you say, listen, you would lead with your price anchor and say, well, for if you wanted everything from kind of soup to nuts, if you wanted to have our full program and attention for a year, it's a $100,000 investment, but our minimum level of engagement is $30,000 with payments spread throughout the year. So now they got a big range, which I like ranges, but you price anchor high, okay? Rule number 4 is to sell on value. This is something I preach in all my programs and my courses. When I was back in 2016, started doing trainings for Tai Lopez's SMMA program. I talked about selling on value. Selling on value starts with a conceptual agreement between you and the client, okay? And it really starts in the discovery meeting when you first meet with that client, okay? You want them to kind of conceptually agree with what it is you're bringing to the table that they need and that they want and that they desire, so you can then come back with a proposal that just matches and summarizes what you've already kind of pre-agreed to. That's what selling on value is all about. And the way that you do that is you do that very simple gap analysis in your discovery meetings, where you ask somebody where they are right now in their current situation, and where do they want to go, and what stopped them from getting there. So you can figure out what the gap is, and would they like help in bridging that gap. Now that's a summary of what I teach like in an hour-long lesson in my course, but establishing that a pre-agreement is really, really, really important. And then your proposal just becomes a summation, a confirmation of your conceptual verbal agreement, and it's not a explanation or a negotiation. When I give someone a proposal, they've already agreed that what it is that they want, they need, and they think that I'm going to be the person that could potentially provide that to them, as long as everything is perceived as fair. And that's how I talk to people. Is it safe to assume that if I present some ideas that are win-win for both of us, that as long as the pricing is fair and within your range, and I don't mind giving them a big range, but I price anchor it very high, so that way if you come in lower than your price anchor, your high fee, you look like you're giving them a deal. And by the way, sometimes clients are going to balk at your pricing, right? They may say, that seems like that seems like a pretty high range. Then I might say, well, what type of range were you hoping for? And I'll wait for them to give me an answer. Okay, they're still going to give me something close to my range because they don't want to be so embarrassed that they were that far off. Now, if they are way off, they don't see the value in what you're offering, and you need to go back to the drawing board with spelling out the value of what it is you're delivering. You never are selling a service to your clients. You're selling the value of the end game to them, of what it is that they want, and then it's the rapport and the belief in you to be able to do that for them. Many times, I've said this before, clients will say to us when they sign an agreement, what is it exactly you're going to do for us again? They don't even care about the services. They just have belief that we're going to help them reach their goals. So there you go. A few insights on pricing strategy. Remember, it starts in your mind first, okay? What do you believe and that you should be charging starts with the value you're giving, and the rest of it is your mindset. And we're going to talk more about that in some future videos. All right, love to hear your feedback, comment on the video, check out some of my free trainings, and I'll see you on the other side.